you hear Ghostbusters, you probably think of slime-covered ghosts, Proton Packs, and a city terrorized by the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. But behind the comedy and chaos, the production of this 1984 classic was nearly as supernatural as the film itself. Actors carried 50-pound Proton Packs for hours at a time, and visual effects were being finished days before release. The making of Ghostbusters was an ambitious, chaotic, and unpredictable experiment. On the surface, it's a beloved supernatural comedy, but behind the slime, shadows, and explosions, it was one of the most challenging and tightly controlled productions Hollywood had ever attempted. So today, we'll cover the 12 crazy facts that reveal the hidden details and behind-the-scenes madness. Number 12. The original script was far more dark and set in the future. Today, you see Ghostbusters as a hilarious, lovable comedy full of quirky supernatural antics, but did you know it could have been something entirely different? Before Bill Murray, who played Dr. Peter Venkman, and Harold Ramis, the brains of the group as Dr. Egon Spengler, even joined the project, the movie's first script was on a completely different wavelength. Dan Aykroyd, the creative mind behind the original idea, wrote a script called Ghost Smashers that was much darker and more like an epic sci-fi adventure. It didn't even take place in New York City streets that we now associate the movie with, but instead it was set far into the future, with multiple teams of Ghostbusters battling ghosts and monsters all across space and on other planets, and even in alternate dimensions. It was loaded full of supernatural chaos and action that never stopped. But director Ivan Reitman found the script so ambitious and expensive to pull off, he described it as impossible to make. And that's when Harold Ramis stepped in to help shift the story into the unforgettable comedy classic that we love today. Just imagine how different things might have been. Number 11. Dan Aykroyd envisioned a multiverse of ghost hunters. Those four iconic Ghostbusters that you know and love, well, they almost weren't alone. Dan Aykroyd's original vision for the film was beyond anything you've seen on the screen. As we just covered, ghostbusting was a massive operation spanning space, time, and other dimensions. Aykroyd's first draft imagined a world where a tear in reality would allow ghosts and creatures from other dimensions to flood into our world. Paranormal hunting was a widespread industry. Teams of ghost hunters competed fiercely, and some were heroic while others had dark intentions. Their goal was to capture supernatural beings and dominate the phenomenon entirely. But as epic as this concept was, the director and the writer Harold Ramis scaled it down, focusing on the comedic, charming team that we know today. Number 10. Ivan Reitman actually ran the Ghostbusters Hotline during its release, and fans called non-stop. During the release of the film, director Ivan Reitman pulled off one of the most clever and exciting movie promotions of all time. He took the fictional Ghostbusters TV commercial from the film and turned it into a real-world stunt. By swapping out the fake 555 phone number for a real toll-free number, they gave fans a chance to call in and feel like part of the Ghostbusters universe. But here's where it gets even more crazy. When people dialed the number, they were greeted by a pre-recorded message from Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd. They humorously explained that the Ghostbusters were out catching ghosts and couldn't come to the phone. It was like stepping straight into the movie, and fans couldn't get enough. The response was better than anyone ever imagined. The hotline got an amazing 1,000 calls every hour, running all day and night 24/7 for several weeks. This creative idea, done before the internet was popular, ended up being one of the most successful promotions of its time. Number 9. Bill Murray improvised large portions of dialogue.
Here, Ray. It's looking at me.
He's an ugly little spud, isn't he?
It's crazy when you find out that much of what made Peter Venkman so unforgettable in Ghostbusters wasn't even in the script. That's right, Bill Murray made up a lot of his lines on the spot, creating the funny, sarcastic, and unforgettable characters that fans love. Director Ivan Reitman and Harold Ramis knew Murray's comedic genius was unmatched, so they gave him the freedom to shape his scenes however he wanted. Sometimes he was only told the basic idea and left to come up with the rest on the spot. The iconic moments, like his hilarious commentary after being slimed or his sharp back-and-forth exchanges, were pure Murray magic, completely improvised during filming. Number 8. Slimer was inspired by John Belushi.
Okay, Ray, give me one hiding outside.
There's no way that you'll believe this crazy fact about Slimer. That iconic green ghost wasn't some random spooky character. He was actually inspired by comedy legend John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd's close friend. Hard to imagine, but Aykroyd originally wanted Belushi to play the role of Peter Venkman. After Belushi's tragic passing in '82, everything changed. When it came time to create the first ghost the team would capture, Aykroyd and Harold Ramis wanted to honor Belushi. Slimer's wild energy, messy appetite, and chaotic personality were all based on Belushi. They even called him Onion Head at first. Visual effects artist Steve Johnson revealed they used Belushi's headshots and watched his moments from Animal House to bring Slimer to life. The final design was a last-minute tribute. Number 7. The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man was a last-minute invention. In the early stages of creating Ghostbusters, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man wasn't even part of the plan. At first, Gozer's final monstrous form was supposed to be something entirely different. Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis had brainstormed a variety of enormous and terrifying creatures to wreak havoc in the climax, but then everything changed. It was only later, around mid-1983, that a brilliant and bizarre idea struck. What if Gozer's form was based on a harmless thought from Ray Stantz's mind? And what could be more innocent than a friendly little marshmallow mascot? That outrageous concept of a massive, fluffy, smiling figure stomping through New York somehow made perfect sense. The absurd mixture of cute and catastrophic destruction was so genius, it stayed in the final screenplay. And just like that, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man was born as a last-minute invention. Number 6. The Proton Packs were heavy and dangerous.
I don't want my face burned off. All right, I'm opening the trap now. Don't look directly into the trap. I looked at the trap, Ray. Turn your streams off as soon as I close.
It may be crazy that they actually made the Proton Packs as heavy as they looked on screen. If you think of them as awesome sci-fi gadgets, well, you're wrong. They were real bulky contraptions weighing about 30 to 50 pounds. Imagine carrying that on your back for hours while running, jumping, and doing stunts. The packs were built using real hardware like fiberglass shells, batteries, and lights, making them even more heavy. Bill Murray himself described wearing one as having a vacuum cleaner on your back, and other cast members like Ernie Hudson admitted the packs were so uncomfortable that filming became a real challenge. To make things a little bit easier, the prop team eventually created lighter versions for specific shots, but for most scenes, the actors had to endure full weight. Knowing this makes Ghostbusters' epic action scenes even more impressive. Number 5. Ghost effects were still being finished days before release.
Gozer the Gozerian? Good evening. As a duly designated representative of the city...
How crazy do you think it is that some of the ghost effects in Ghostbusters were being finished only days before the movie hit theaters? That's right, the effects-packed film was working under such a tight schedule that the visual effects team, led by Richard Edlund, had less than 4 months to complete hundreds of complex shots after filming wrapped in February. And if that wasn't enough, director Ivan Reitman kept adding new shots only weeks before the movie's June release. It got so close to the wire that every test screenings for audiences even showed unfinished ghost effects. Number 4. The movie had no ending locked until late post-production. As I said, the filmmakers were working under a tight schedule, and because of that, they had to finish everything in the final days. That's where things get even more crazy. The movie didn't even have a finalized ending locked in until late in post-production. Director Ivan Reitman was editing the movie while filming was still going on. They were cutting scenes and figuring out how everything would flow at the same time as shooting and creating ghost effects. With only 13 months from the moment they got the green light to the big theater release, every decision about the final confrontation and pacing was made on the fly. The ending wasn't some kind of perfectly planned moment figured out months ahead, but instead it evolved in real time in the editing room. With scenes shifting and getting fine-tuned right up to the last minute, this kept the entire climax totally unpredictable, even for the filmmakers themselves. Number 3. Columbia Pictures bet the studio on this movie. Now, it may be seriously crazy, but when Columbia Pictures decided to take on Ghostbusters, they threw a Hail Mary that could have sunk the entire studio. The film had a massive budget of $25 to $30 million, which was outrageous for a comedy then. And here's the twist. They had no finished script, no special effects studio lined up, and an impossible deadline of 13 months to deliver. Even Columbia's parent company, Coca-Cola, thought it was a disaster in waiting. People were so worried about the movie, they even sent a lawyer to stop it before it got started. Other people in the industry simply laughed at the idea, saying that it was sure to fail. Everyone thought Columbia was making a huge mistake. The pressure was so intense that if the movie ended up flopping, it could have ruined the entire studio's future. But Ghostbusters turned into a runaway success, grossing over $295 million worldwide and becoming one of the greatest films of the 1980s. What began as a massive gamble would turn into one of the most legendary wins in Hollywood history. Number 2. The tone terrified executives during test screenings. What's crazier than a studio investing millions in a movie that had everyone biting their nails in fear, especially the executives themselves? When the early screenings of the film began, Columbia Pictures higher-ups almost went into a full-blown panic. It wasn't just the spooky, ghostly parts that scared them. Moments like Zool's creepy growl gave them the chills. But what really scared them was the huge cost. Spending all that money on a funny movie in the early 80s was almost unheard of, and they were worried it would be a big flop. One executive even whispered, "Don't worry, we all make mistakes," trying to brace for what they had thought would be a disaster. Their doubts didn't end there, though. Even the chairman of Columbia's parent company, Coca-Cola, openly worried they were going to lose their shirts. Number 1. The special effects company was created just for this movie. How crazy is the fact that Ghostbusters was so ambitious with its visual effects, an entirely new company was created just to make it happen. In 1984, when the movie was greenlit, the top effects studio in Hollywood was Industrial Light and Magic. They were swamped on films like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and Return of the Jedi, so instead of scaling back the vision, producers came up with a solution. Richard Edlund, a legendary visual effects artist who had already won Oscars for work on Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark, was about to leave ILM and begin his own company. With $5 million invested from Columbia, he started Boss Film Studios to create over 600 amazing special effects for Ghostbusters, all on a tight schedule. The team built the studio from the ground up, brought in experts, and used a mixture of miniatures, puppets, and practical effects, along with clever optical tricks to make the movie's ghost scenes come to life. What's your favorite thing about Ghostbusters? Be sure to let me know down below. Also, smash that like button if you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to subscribe so that you always know when we upload another video like this. Any recommendations? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.